background is, in high school, I was fortunate enough to have a high school radio station. And I got involved very Rube Goldberg device-y, kind of an end-around way to get me to radio. I was in band, and I was the tuba player in band. I was first chair tuba, which is to say I was better than the other tuba player. There were only two tuba players. But the problem was we had marching band as well. You had to be a part of marching band. And as you see, my physique being what it is and my gait being what it is, sousaphone isn't my long suit. I would say the sousaphone being the tuba that you wrap around your body. So we tried just having a tuba stand on the field, and then everybody would kind of march around me as though they were in orbit around my tuba. But there's a lot of solar system problems there, and it just didn't really work with the whole motif. So the band leader said, let's find you something to do. So he said, hey, we need somebody to announce our sets. So I would go up to the press box at football games and say, coming up next, the band gives you Wheels of a Dream from Ragtime. And that was my contribution to the band. And Frank, I turned out to be better at that than the tuba. Although, again, first chair tuba. So I got to do radio in high school, and that was the perfect situation, right? I didn't know it at the time, but I'm doing radio, and the inhibitions are gone. People aren't making fun of me. They're not saying anything about the way I walk because they can't see the way that I walk. And how inspirational is that? I'm standing up here saying, just hide it for a while. Well, it was really nice. It was really nice to have that moment where you know what it's like to have the disability be completely gone. You almost have to experience that in some way, whether it's knowing where your value is in life, what you feel good at, but I think what you feel good at comes from maybe those inhibitions being gone. So that led me to Syracuse University, where I got to do a lot of different games. I did Syracuse University football and basketball and lacrosse. Got to do a bunch of cool stuff there, go on road trips and things like that, which then led me to minor league baseball. So I was a radio announcer full-time now. I got to spend full-time on the bus. So I was in Salem, Virginia, and I was traveling in the Carolina League, which is an advanced A baseball league. And in the Carolina League, we go to a bunch of different places, Woodbridge, Virginia being one of them, Wilmington, Delaware, Frederick, Maryland. One of the places we were at was Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And I was up in the press box in Myrtle Beach, and I had a scout who was wearing this Panama hat, and he was this old-timey scout, and he comes up to me and he goes, what do you got? You got polio? I wanted to say, sir, we have eradicated that one. We had a player in Salem, Virginia. His name was Vladimir Sutil. He was from Venezuela, and this is one of those know your audience type of scenarios. It was a heavy country station sort of area, Salem, Virginia. The Borat movie. Have you seen the Borat movie? The rodeo in the Borat movie was actually filmed in our parking lot at the Civic Center in Salem, Virginia. So, doing a game, Vladimir Sutil comes rushing home on a base hit. He gets thrown out at the plate, and I say, you picked a fine time to leave me, Sutil. Our concessions guy, his name was Scott Burton, still living, great guy. He comes up to me, he says, that you picked a fine time to leave me, Sutil, is the funniest thing I ever heard. And all I thought was, I've called like 5,000 plays for this season, and this is the one time you say something to me on the Lucille joke? That's what we're doing here? After Salem and after High Point, I got into the TV world, quote unquote, which had me traveling significantly more. I was, as you heard in the intro, I was doing law school at the same time as I was doing play-by-play. So I was traveling back and forth from North Carolina to New York, where I was working in Syracuse at the time, and then starting to do some ESPN work. I was traveling significantly more. And I was in a lot of airports, 50 flights a year, whatever it might be, 100 flights a year. And And I found that airports are the place where you are reminded most of your disability. I got on an airplane a few years ago, and I was getting across the bridge, and the woman said, the flight attendant, she said, "Can I help you with your bags?" Well, but how? Like, how did, again, I'm here. Like, I just toted them from there to here. So what? How? Where's the? But then I stop myself and I say, this comes from a really great place in people's hearts. You don't want people to stop wanting to help, but you do want people to stop reminding you that you have a disability. So there's this two-way function where you say, boy, I'd like to say something to this person, but I also want that instinct to stay there. And I think the key of what it is, of how to handle that situation, at least in my experience, comes from a situation I had about a year ago on a plane. I was flying back from Eugene, Oregon, and I was in an exit row. I was exit row right, 2 seats on the left, 2 on the right. I had the whole row to myself. The couple across from me was a very hale-looking 50 to 60-year-old couple. And the flight attendant comes over to talk about the exit row. And she says, "Are you willing and able to handle the exit row?" I say yes. And she says, "In case of emergency, yada, yada," whatever the second question is, she says that as well. And then she says to me, "Are you sure?" I said, "Uh-huh." She says, "You know, that door's pretty heavy." I said, "Yeah." She says, "It's like whatever pounds." "Okay, thank you." And she legitimately asked me 3 more questions after that. Then she turned to the couple across from me, and she said, "Are you willing and able?" They said yes. And she said, "In case of," and they said yes, and she left. And I thought, that seems inequitable. But I'm not sure whether or not she just rushed through it because she did, or she rushed through it because she had more questions for me, or what's the analysis here? So she's coming through with the drink cart later in the flight. It's a short flight. We're flying Eugene to Portland, and then I was flying Portland home, or Eugene to Salt Lake. She comes through with the cart, and I said, "So, real quick question. Why did you ask me 8 questions and them 2 on the exit row deal?" She said, what? I said, "You asked me a bunch of questions. You didn't ask them very many questions at all." And she said, I don't know, I didn't mean to." And that was enough for me to know that I had at least signaled something in her that maybe she had done something that was untoward, directed at me accidentally, kind of. There are a lot of qualifiers there. There's a lot of thinking that goes into it. But I called a friend of mine after who's a law student, and I told him about the situation, and he said, "What was her name? I'm going to call Delta. We're going to put all these things in." I said, I don't want regs. I don't want people to be forced to make that decision. I want people to think about it, to get past the very first trait that they see. That's what I want. And you can put all the regulations into place that you want to stop nefarious behavior, or not even nefarious behavior that is just accidental based on what people are seeing. Everybody's got schemas, right? You put somebody into a box, you put a green sign into a box because it looks like a roadway sign. We all do that. If we all had to think about everything that we were doing at every given moment, we'd freak out. It would be a Vesuvial mental thing. So the idea being, you just want to change people's minds if you can. You want to let them know that what they're seeing might be second or third level. There might be another thought process that goes along with it. So as I progressed in my quote-unquote TV career, I had a journalist come down to Wake Forest Law School and interview me about what I was doing with ESPN. I just started working with ESPN. Her name was Viv Bernstein. She's a fantastic writer and a great woman and very empathetic. And she asked me during the course of the interview, "Do you think there's a ceiling for you in the TV world?" And I had just gotten into TV. I had done radio basically this whole time. And I said, I've never really thought about that. I have no idea whether that's the case or not. And 3-4 years later, this was 2014, I was at a conference for TV announcers. And one of the things that you do at a TV announcer conference is you talk to a talent consultant. A talent consultant is somebody who tells you what to look like, what to put on, what your best color is. Purple, is that, as I recall. So that's her job, or his job, but in this case it was a her. And I decided, you know what? If there's any concern from the TV people, it is the image. I know how to call a game. I've done a lot of radio. I'm comfortable with inflection and voice and technical stuff and working with a partner and things like that. But I can't look directly into a camera. I have an eye that is curious, let's say. It tends to drift. They haven't created ADHD medication for the eye to make it focus. Like, hey, excuse me, there's something going on over here. Will you please? So I decided to go see the talent consultant, one-on-one. She was available for one-on-one talent consulting. I keep putting it in air quotes, and that seems to be demeaning, and I don't necessarily mean to do that, but you can do that if you want to at the end of the story. So the talent consultant had just told the room, she was like, here are a couple baseline things, one of which is don't wear too bright of ties because it takes away from your face. If you have a giant rainbow tie, people are going to be looking at your tie. So don't do it. So I go meet with the talent consultant one-on-one, and she says, look, first things first, I wouldn't wear your glasses. I would can the glasses because it draws attention to your eye. And we were very frank to each other, and I was actually really grateful for that she would tell me a small hint to make it better. I mean, Bill Cullen, the game show host, remember Bill Cullen? Hosted The Price is Right before Bob Barker. He was on Blockbusters, any number of shows. He actually did have polio as a kid before they decided to do the whole song and dance and get rid of the disease and whatnot. So he never was shown on TV walking. His directors just had him at a podium, and the game would come to him. So knowing that, I like these tips. She then says to me, one thing I would do, I'd wear brighter ties. I thought, didn't you just say? And I asked her, didn't you just tell the whole room to not wear too bright of ties? She said, yeah. I was like, well, what are you? She said, well, it's too funny for me to say. She was like, well, we want to focus on the positive features. I was like, being my tie collection? What? I mean, essentially she was saying like, hey, in my world, doesn't really compute. It just doesn't compute. In 2004, if somebody would have said that to me, I would have blown up. Or I would have gone back to my dorm room or house on campus and lost it a little bit. I would have just said, I don't know that this is going to happen. I don't know that TV, I would have thought that there was a ceiling. But over the course of time, all of the moments that I'm telling you about, even Lucille, have made me realize that somebody with a disability has the opportunity, as we all do, to surprise people. And that is the most beautiful thing about having a disability or knowing somebody with a disability, because in a world where so much is premeditated and so much is canned and so much is ready-made, you have the chance every day to change somebody's mind and let them analogize that to other interactions they have. Let them take that to talking to other people. Because if you handle, or the person with a disability that you know handles well the situation and well-being, trying to educate people. Hey, I don't need that cart, but here's why. I had somebody say to me, get on the cart. Like, no, no. And here's why. Because I don't need it. Because other people may need it. Because I don't like being reminded. But also, the next time, the person will maybe ask in a different way. Or maybe not ask. Maybe then the person who needs the cart will just be able to, on their own, ask for it, or whatever it might be. The goal is to surprise people every day. And that's where broadcasting, for me, meets having a disability. Because when my guy in Salem, Virginia comes up to me and says, "Dad, you picked a fine time to leave me Sutil thing," I thought, why does he remember that? Why? Well, it's because it's different, and it's new, and it's something novel. And it's also something that makes other people understand you. Those connections that you make via surprise can change people's lives. But it's not only if you have a disability, right? That may be what it's taught me, but anybody has the chance to surprise anybody. So, as you think about people that you run into, ask yourself, where do they come from? What is it that they might have that I don't know? What's their surprise, and how can I surprise them? And in those small ways, if there's something that you want to do and shock people with, go do it. Thank you. Hi.
You're awesome, dude.
Thank you.